Hey there. So I went to a great independence event yesterday. It was put on by Rebel News. It was in Red Deer at a venue. I don't know how many people came out, six, perhaps 700. Uh, Excellent, enthusiastic room. It was an all day conference, which I think the high point was a debate between David Knight Legg and Keith Wilson, both lawyers, both very passionate Albertans, though Keith is much more on the independence front and Legg is more on the try to change from within front. But it was such a nice event in that the room was polite. I mean, Legg was there, at a room that mostly was independence minded, and still people were politely enjoying the discussion because it was an intelligent, respectful one, and we need more of that. And there were others. There was also panels with all of the different independence parties. Whereas, again, I'm not too keen on the independence party idea as a means to get things to the finish line, but hey, my view is just one of them. Let's get those parties in front of a whole room to talk about it. And of course, as well, it led me to a presentation and a speech as well, which went well. Uh, I like to think so, anyways. I got mostly good feedback. But something happened that was striking, and it brought me to another part from my book that I want to talk about. And that's letting kind of the more extreme or weird or nutty people get in front and mess up the movement. We got to be careful of that. We got to be really, really careful of that. So while I was there, a woman came up to me. I was sitting at a table where I'd been selling my books. They'd sold out. So when I flogged my book on here, I won't even have a copy to show you. I couldn't get enough copies to keep up that day. But one of the chapters, as I said, is on that. So I'm sitting at my table. A woman comes up to me, and she's quite upset. And she pointed out, and I'd had another person come up and talk to me who had this on as well, that there's been stars of David she's seen around. And one of the room was full of tables, and there was a table. Somebody had put an Israel flag on the table. There was another person I saw with a T-shirt that said, "I support Israel," or something like that with a big Star of David. And a woman had come up to talk to me, and she had a Star of David pendant on. I mean, of the hundreds and hundreds of people there, so some people were on a pro-Israel thing when they were in there. Okay, fine. But she was, Israel is behind this event. Israel's funding this event. This is a problem. Like I said to her, "What's the Israel isn't behind it. It's not." Let's just say as she got more agitated, I got a little annoyed, and she didn't care for my response for things, and then stormed off and just kept glancing at me because apparently now I'm a part of that big conspiracy. Of course, okay, guys, no, Israel wasn't controlling the event. There were crucifixes on a whole lot of people there too. As I said on X, I still don't think that the Pope or the Vatican were controlling the event. That sort of xenophobia, paranoia. This is the sort of thing that sinks movements, though. We got to watch out for. Different people have they're welcome to their views, but we're in a movement that is of people who are rebellious in nature, of people who question the establishment, people who question authority. And to be blunt, it also attracts some crazy people and some paranoid people, which is typically fine until you start crossing some lines, though. And we've got to watch it with that. I know a lot of people say, oh, yesterday's conspiracies are today's facts, and they can point to a couple of areas, particularly when it came to the COVID reaction from the government, whereas it wasn't a conspiracy, things were real. But bear in mind, most conspiracy theories are still complete crackpottery and nutty and have no basis. So when we're trying to promote something as important as an independence movement, we can't have somebody take the microphone and explain how 5G signals are cooking our minds, or that WestJet is actually secretly spraying chemicals in the air to control our minds or modify the weather or make our toilets get plugged up or whatever it might be. I don't care if you think that the Jews did 9/11. Your place isn't at an independence microphone to bring up that kind of loopy crap. Or if you thought the space landing was faked, whatever. There's no end to them, right? Okay. Being free speech minded in the independence movement, means that we don't want to crack down on people even if we don't agree with their views. They're allowed to have views even if they're on the outside. But as I said, there's lines. And then we also get into what we're going to get accused of the whole time is racism, and sexism and all the isms that we're going to be bad about. But the unfortunate thing is there really are some pretty blatant racists out there. There are some bad sexists out there. There are some really hateful anti-LGBTQ people out there. They exist. They're in a minority, thankfully, but we always get accused of harboring that sort of uh, view. And if we allow, and it gets where it gets tough, but it's not a matter of not allowing people to a microphone. If we allow these kind of people to get to a microphone at one of our events unchecked, if we don't counter it, if we don't make it clear that this is not representative of our movement, this isn't our goal. We're not trying to create an all-white society. We're not trying to create some all-Christian society where we'll wipe out every other faith in the area. We're not trying to make a theocracy. We're not trying to ban 5G. We're not going to try and expose how the earth is actually flat. We have to make it clear that these are individuals speaking, and they're going to be a part of our movement, and they are agonizingly vocal. The few, there are few, but there's some people, and let's face it, some people are crazy, and some people are offensive, and some people are hateful, and we can't fully embrace them within this. We have to be as open-minded as possible, but not open-minded to the point where our brains fall out. So it's just another of those steps as we build this, and it's hard. There are some people I know who are the most friendly, nicest, thoughtful people on earth, but then all of a sudden they'll say something about black people or something. Holy cow, whoa, where did that come from? Or others, when it comes to it, if just they are very concerned that chemtrails are really coming out there and controlling us, and they're quite upset and they're frightened, and fair enough, and otherwise they're great people and they're working hard and they're with the movement. We don't want to get in their face, be rude to them, belittle them. But at the same time, we can't let that paint the movement. I keep coming back to that in a lot of these videos and a lot of my speeches on what we're trying to do. And we really got to keep laser focused on getting that yes vote in a referendum. It's such a tough task ahead of us. It really is. We're doing great. Meetings are being held all over. The Alberta Prosperity Project is doing great. The parties are doing what they will. Activists are doing what they will. But it's so easy to get distracted, sidelined, infighting. And we can't forget, this is what was given to us, which is fantastic, is the ability now to hold a referendum, and it's got to stick to a yes or no. If we get pissing around with all of the other side stuff, it's going to fail. So we don't want to be playing too much whack-a-mole with the whack-a-jobs that are going to be popping up throughout our movement. Some of them will even be purposely put in there. I mean, I've referenced before, we look at it, it stinks to high heaven that swastika flag that showed up at the convoy protest, where the only people who got pictures of it happened to be Liberal operatives, and nobody else there saw these clowns walking around with it. It was 100% a plant. You see, that's not conspiracy, that's not paranoia, but you have to address and denounce those efforts, whether it really is a nut in your midst or whether it's a planted nut in your midst, because it spreads a poison. So, yes, my response to the woman who was concerned that Israel had taken control of the event I was at wasn't very accepting of her on the spot. In fact, I think she might have left. I hope she did. Because, if you've got that Jews control everything mindset, well, piss off. We don't have time for it. If Jews controlled everything, boy, I think they'd be having a better time with a number of things. And of course, the head of Rebel News, in case maybe she doesn't understand traditional Jewish names, is Ezra Levant. I suspect he's probably sympathetic to Jewish causes. It doesn't mean it's an Israel-controlled event. But this is of the 100 things we have to deal with as we move towards getting yes vote, is making sure our goal and our voices don't get co-opted by people who either, whether well-meaning or not well-meaning, are speaking to things that have absolutely nothing to do with our independence and will sour other people when they're considering, those undecided people wondering if it's a good idea to put a yes vote on. Because what the independence advocates represent right now too are sort of, well, what we think the mindset of people will be the day after an independence vote if we become independent. And if it turns out that people think that it's a group of people who want to form a theocracy or, deport all the brown people or do things like that, they're not going to vote for it. Why would they? Nobody wants that. You want that sort of a world, to go move to the Middle East. It's all there for you. But either way, 99% of the people in the room were fantastic. and well-meaning, like-minded souls in there promoting independence. We need more meetings, more debates, more exchanges like that. And as I've talked about, whether it's a group of 40 or a group of 600, 700 like it was yesterday, this is how we're going to move it over the goal line. But as we do it, we've got to carefully maintain control. That's one of the problems with a decentralized movement. You don't have that rigid control. I mean, that's an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time, right? We don't have some centralized planner who can blow the whole thing up. At the same time, we don't have as much control on things too, and somebody can kind of divert our message and let it become messed up. And so again, so much it comes down to it's personal responsibility. If we want this movement to go, it's up to us. We have to make it go. It also means we're responsible for keeping it focused on the independence thing and not some of the many, many sidetracks or some of the even offensive and odious sidetracks. We have to keep it positive. We have to make sure that we're convincing people that we're building a better new nation, not an intolerant one. So, I wanted to share that example I saw from yesterday because it's, as I said, it's a chapter in my book. I don't have one to show. There's a link to purchase one, the Sovereignist's Handbook, down below, because I want us to turn into effective independence advocates. And sort of quarantining the more extreme among us, and they're a tiny minority, is important. Because if it's a free-for-all for every kind of, I know there's so many insults thrown out there, a fringe. There really are fringe people who exist, even though it gets blanket thrown at everybody who differs with the establishment. But we know there are some who really are way out there. So let's not give them easy ammunition, guys. Let's not let that group of people hijack anything, and just keep our eyes on the target. Things are looking great. I'm optimistic, but we've always got to take care.